Alright guys, Jameson and Alex here. Today we are talking about the Oath of the Hearth Paladin.
Emphasize the second H.
Yes, Hearth. This one is from the Griffon Saddlebag Book 1, so make sure check them out. Awesome people over there. But yeah, if you're new to the channel or the series, what we're going to do is go through all the abilities gained in the subclass. We're going to rate the combat, roleplay, and synergy. Did a little different there. And don't forget to like, comment, or subscribe to be entered in our D&D Beyond Sourcebook.
Yes, that's the big one. All of the stuff.
All that being said, let's just jump straight into it. Alex, what do we get with this subclass?
We are a paladin. Therefore, we get our tenets, as always. And this one is shield the embers, feed the fire, share the warmth, and burn away evil. So there's this whole fireplace, the hearth, warmth and food and cooking, which makes me think of, fireplace.
Sure.
Good food over the fire. We also get our Oath of Hearth spells. That's a lot of TH. Oath of Hearth.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Keep on your toes.
Yeah. Burning Hands, 5 familiar. Aid, Contentious, Flame, Continuous. What contentious? Where did I get?
Nobody knows.
Anyway, we're coming off the holidays. Brain not fully reset yet. It's Continuous Flame, Beacon of Hope, Daylight, Fire Shield, Guardian of Faith, Flame Strike, and Telepathic Bond.
All right, pretty interesting list on there. Very thematic, to say the least.
Telepathic Bond is the one that comes like a little bit out of
a
left field compared to the rest of them.
Yeah,
but
definitely.
That's fine.
As normal on here, we get some Channel Divinity options at 3rd level. First is Burning Weapon. As a bonus action, you can ignite one weapon that you're holding with fiery energy using Channel Divinity. For 1 minute, you deal extra fire damage with that weapon equal to your Charisma modifier. The weapon also emits bright light in a 20-foot radius and dim light for an additional 20 feet. If the weapon is not already magical, it becomes magical for the duration. You can end this effect on your turn, no action required. If you are no longer holding or carrying this weapon, or if you fall unconscious, this effect ends. So it basically becomes a torch.
Yep.
And Warming Respite is the other option, which you can use your Channel Divinity to enhance the healing powers of a good rest. When you or any friendly creatures who can see you finish a short rest, you can use your Channel Divinity to grant each of those creatures a number of temp hit points equal to your Paladin level.
Yeah.
So one nice thing about temp hit points that we always bring up. Obviously they don't stack, so if you get them from multiple different sources, it's not good.
Resets kind of thing.
It does, help you get above your maximum hit point threshold, which is always nice.
And this one does scale since it's off your paladin level. It's not just like your set amount or whatever. So it's going to be slightly better as you go through your level up process.
Right.
Next up is your aura, as most paladins do get. This is the Aura of Warmth. You and friendly creatures within 10 feet of you have resistance to cold and fire damage while you are conscious. And at 18th level, as usual, the range of this aura increases to 30 feet.
And though it is simple, I'd say it is very efficient because those are two very common damage types.
Yeah, for sure. At 15, we have Insulating Ward. Whenever you expend a spell slot, you and friendly creatures within your Aura of Warmth gain a number of temporary hit points equal to the spell slot's level plus your Charisma modifier. So 2 different ways for you to give out some temp HP between your Channel Divinity option and this.
Yes, for sure. And then finally our Capstone at level 20. As an action, you can magically ignite yourself to embody your fiery soul for 1 minute. The flames are harmless to you and cast bright light in a 40-foot radius and dim light for an additional 40 feet. The flames invigorate you, giving you 10 temp HP at the start of each of your turns. While in this form, you become more lithe and fluid in your movements, increasing your speed by 10 feet and allowing you to move through and enter a hostile creature's space and stop there. Hostile creatures are hurt by these flames as punishment for their transgressions. A hostile creature takes fire damage equal to twice your charisma modifier whenever it touches you, hits you with a melee attack, or whenever you enter its space for the first time on your turn. Once you use this feature, you can't use it again until you finish a long rest. So, very interesting. Lots of thoughts to be had about this one, which we will do in the rating portion, which we'll just jump straight into. First up is the roleplay asterisk, as always. Talking about roleplay, we're talking about interacting with the world around you, interacting with NPCs, non-combat scenarios, avoiding combat, basically things outside the initiative order. Not talking about your class fantasy, history, lore, background, that's on you as a player. We can't rate you, but we can rate the abilities gained in the subclass, how they might improve your potential in those roleplay scenarios. So, looking at this one, there's some roleplay potential. Again, here we're looking at the mechanical side, not the flavor. There is a lot of flavor with the fire and warmth and stuff like that. The spells are okay. I mean, there's a few things that could be used in different circumstances. Though you are Paladin, half-caster, very limited with your spells.
It's on the board.
On the wall. So you got to keep that in mind, always being a half-caster. that they're very limited, so you have to really think about when you want to use spell slots for RP versus combat, especially as a paladin with smites and things like that. It can be very detrimental to your party if you burned all your spell slots and you're not able to just smite, crit, confirm with those spell slots. So something you always have to keep in mind with that. The Channel Divinity for basically a torch weapon is okay. You are very limited with Channel Divinities as well. You're not a cleric, so you only get per day versus short rest. So you have to keep that in mind as well. So very limited and very niche as well. There's lots of other ways to get light sources as well. If your party doesn't have dark vision or whatever, anyways. So it's all right. It's a little bit of something here if you really, really need something.
Yeah.
And
especially level 1, 2, when you're first getting the lower level stuff, it may be really dangerous to not be able to see stuff.
One thing too that I guess can come into play, it's way more of a niche thing, is sometimes certain creatures or things recoil from fire. It's kind of like a theme of certain kinds of dark creatures and things like that. So
light in general,
maybe it can be a thing. So if you really needed it, sure, I guess that's super niche. The temp hit points for the Channel Divinity is kind of indirect because healing is very, I would say, inefficient in 5e. It can do stuff, so if you can prevent damage, it's kind of better a lot of times. Yeah. Because really, if you're healing someone, the best thing to do a lot of times is just wait until they go down and then bring them back up.
Before their turn.
Because you could, if someone's low on hit points and you throw a healing spell at them, it's you might only heal, if they're at 5 hit points and they go to 9. Yeah. And they get hit for 10. If you just waited...
Now you can back up on their turn before their turn.
Exactly. So it's kind of this awkward thing with healing in 5th edition. So some ways to kind of indirectly help maybe your other party members not have to use spell slots for that. And it's pretty decent amount. I mean, Paladin level is okay, eventually you're going to be giving 20 temp HP to people. Sure.
It's also a predictable amount of most healing, aside from your baseline Paladin healing and the heal spell itself, a lot of healing involves dice roll, which was kind of random. So in fact, at least with your temp HP from your Channel Divinity, you at least know what the number is going to be. It's not it might be 4, it might be 15. You know what it's going to be.
And the other thing too is kind of with exploration, dungeon delving, things like that. If you're inside a dungeon, you take a short rest. There's going to be traps and stuff. It's
that's true.
This will help kind of buffer you. Maybe be a little bit less careful. Yeah, because you have that extra buffer.
Maybe that treasure chest looks like it might be perilous to get to, might be worth getting to after all.
And then speaking of dungeon delving and exploration stuff, the aura with those damage types are very common. Those are more natural damage types, cold and fire.
Especially fire.
There's lots of traps or different weather environments that could cause those kind of damage types. So that is going to be relatively helpful in some of those circumstances as well. So, but that's basically it in the role play. A lot of niche stuff. So we went with a 2.5 out of 5 in that department.
On the combat side of things, there's definitely a heavier focus for sure. Primarily look at the spells, Burning Hands. Find Familiar has uses in both things, especially some of the buff spells Paladins can do require a touch kind of thing. A Fire Shield, Frame Strike, that stuff is all going to be useful for combat. Your Burning Weapon Channel Divinity option, you're going to get extra fire damage. With fires, it's a simple damage. It's very commonly resisted, but especially early on when you first get it, that extra fire damage you put a charisma modifier is going to feel better early on, especially. It's less likely to be resisted at level 3, 4, 5 than it is at level 17 or something, where probably the temp HP is going to be more useful consistently later on, especially when you're giving out 16 and 17 temp HP every time you use the ability.
Plus, charisma is not really your go-to stat.
Also, usually you're not taking charisma as your primary stat. You're not a warlock or sorcerer.
I think one of the more overlooked things is going to be that it makes your weapon magical. That's probably going to end up being more important than the fire damage.
Yeah, absolutely. But like Jameson said with the RP-based things, it also still helps your combat because it prevents you from having to heal in combat as much or anybody else having to heal in combat as much if you can preempt some of that damage with temp HP for both your Channel Divinity and your level 15 ability with the Insulating Ward, which anytime you do cast a spell, but half-caster problems, you do at least get an extra benefit on top of that of giving yourself and any friendly creatures within your aura that temp HP. So it's not ever going to be a ton, but maybe it's 5 here, it's 6 here, but you're giving that not just to one person, but to 2, maybe 3 people, especially once the aura expands.
And you got to keep in mind too that it doesn't stack, so you want to not do it if you're going to be overriding or whatever hit temp HP.
Yeah, for sure. Of course, the aura itself is not a very exciting aura, but very helpful because it's not giving you just one resistance, but two, especially when it comes up to level 18 and it gets most of your party outside of your wizard who wants to hide from all people of existence in combat and just do his thing from the different zip code because, made of glass and all. And then finally the capstone, giving you just all this extra fire damage and plus the temp HP and your and extra movement speed. It makes you kind of like this, super mobile paladin, almost like a monk paladin having a kid together, a barbarian paladin, and getting in there with extra fire damage and doing extra damage. And nothing crazy exciting compared to some of the other maybe capstones, but it feels like it's still going to be useful because it does help address the paladin's major problem of in combat, or not major, but one of their more common problems with range-based things. As with any martial class primarily, is if you can't get into range, you're either having to cast a spell just to do damage or like throw a javelin at something instead of getting in there and getting your big two-hander at something and swinging at them really nice and heavy. So, but anyway, this really feels to me, it's a phrase I've used often on this channel, like a very high floor, low ceiling type of subclass, because you're not getting any individual ability that's like super crazy exciting or like, holy crap, this is powerful, but it's only like a once a day thing. You're getting a lot of like very useful stuff that you can do more often, or it's reliable. Enchanted Indie, you've got two choices, an offensive and a kind of a heal-like effect. So you've got nice versatile choices. I think it's too complicated, so I have an easier one to play at that. But all good things to say for the most part, with the exception of the challenges of fire damage, being resisted, and all that jazz. But with all that there, we went with a 4 out of a possible 5. Again, the high floor is appealing when you can get some reliable things, especially when you're playing a game that relies a lot on luck and chance with dice rolls and things. Right. So getting some reliability is always nice.
And kind of just switching over to the synergy kind of score with this, one thing that is nice is a lot of the free stuff on here, like for example, the aura, once you have insulating, it kind of gives you just basically free temp HP, free healing for stuff you're going to be doing anyway, which is going to be using spell slots. So that is nice, and it has some good synergy with that. Again, the limited spell slot usage is something you always have to consider, and it is charisma modifier. So that's probably the biggest concern with this, is the dependency on charisma. Now, you can get into that kind of mad multi-ability score dependency if you try to split your scores too much. But with paladins, they do have stuff like lay on hands that can help keep them up. Now you have temp HP to help keep you up. You have heavy armor, which can help keep you up. So there's some things and ways with their auras, base class, with saving throws and stuff like that. So there's some good defensive options just innately with paladins that lets them maybe get away with more. Also, their hit die is D10, so they don't really have to worry quite as much. They have a pretty decent base score with that. So they have some good built-in base class options defensively. Yeah. So it lets you feel like you don't necessarily have to go fully into con. You could maybe split con and charisma, or if you want to maybe make con your third score, you could make charisma your second if you want to make your abilities more potent. That is an option. Now you have to keep in mind it is fire damage, which again, as Alex has said, is more resistant in things. But if you're looking at more of the utility support side, it's going to give you more temp HP for your party members with the insulating once you do get to that at 15. So that is something you could consider, but there is that little bit of potential mad depending on what kind of build you're going for in that department. You do have again the extra free healing, some good damage resistances with cold and fire, super common, probably 2 of the 3 most common besides poison on there from the elemental types at the very least. So definitely some interesting options. I think the capstone is going to be better than it looks initially because it's the first time you touch a creature each turn, so you could run through multiple creatures on your turn as a way, and then you stop on a creature and they're going to take it again, and then if they hit you, they're going to take it again. So you're going to be getting a decent amount of fire damage going out there, especially if you do make charisma like your second score. Yeah. And it's double that, so if it's like if you have a 16 or 18 charisma, you're doing like 8, 16, 24, 30 damage for free just every turn. Yep. It's not bad. It is
Again,
fire damage, so you got to keep that in mind.
We didn't say it was necessarily exciting, but it's reliable. And
And it is a capstone,
Yeah.
so it is that. But it's going to make your temp HP for your other abilities better. It's going to make your fire damage from your Channel Divinity better, so if you do decide to go that route. So it's interesting, if anything. For Synergy, we went with a 4 out of 5 for that as well.
Yes.
It does have some potential use. You do have to keep in mind, as always, spell slot usage, maybe your character build in general, if you want to play more of a supporty, almost like a healer, because you're going to have that temp HP.
Yeah.
Damage prevention versus, full-on healing,
Yep.
restoring. A lot of times it is better to do that.
Prevention
in
is
general.
better than fixing after the fact.
Yeah.
At least in 5th edition.
Yeah. So, that's going to be it for this one. Getting close to the end for this first round. We'll be coming back around and getting the ones we skipped because we were splitting Grim Hollow and Griffon Saddlebag stuff back and forth. So keep tuned for all the rest of these. We'll eventually get through them. We want to space them out a little bit, leave some intrigue and kind of touch on some smaller, less known stuff as well. I think it's always fun. Mm-hmm. But that's it for today, guys. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the bell notifications so you know when all of our new videos are coming out. Don't forget to check out our Patreon.
Yes.
We have currently 3 issues of our World of Terrantal digital zine out there.
Yeah, that's
about 40, close to 40 pages, I think, of content on there.
Each episode's got a subclass homebrewed by us with help from one of our other
party members.
Party members. Trust his knowledge and opinion and shenanigans-filled brain that he has as well, along with monsters, spells, magic items, a myriad of all that kind of stuff spread out through there. So more of that to come.
Yes, for sure. So check that out. As always, guys,